very good facilities, you probably can be a little bit more forgiving in terms of, some weaker processes. But it seems here that you've had bad people in terms of process and protocol, and then bad facilities on top of it. And so it's kind of a perfect storm in terms of having problems, and then it affects the rest of your business, and you're not integrated. And so your salespeople are sort of, trying to operate with their hands tied behind their backs because they don't know what product they've got. There's disease issues, and therefore nothing's linked up. And so you have all sorts of wastage, which is all just going to feed into your margin.
Yeah. So again, I applaud your understanding. You have truly identified the problem with Doom, and they bought, in many cases, struggling businesses at a low multiple in an effort to drive their top-line revenue so they could then flip the business, right? That's what their model is. So they are saddled with those problems, and it actually creates a bigger problem for them in that growers typically will forgive a supplier one time. If you have a disease issue or a quality problem or availability issues. Duman has had, last couple years in particular, including the spring of 2018, a number of disease and insect issues, as well as availability issues on various spring bedding and perennial crops. So they've kind of undone themselves from a reliability perspective in the market, and I think that's complicated by their whole go-to-market distribution strategy, and it sounds like you have a pretty good understanding of the business, but Human is primarily a breeder-producer that has traditionally sold through third-party distribution to the grower community, which then finishes the product and delivers it to retail for sale to consumers. Duman had an open market distribution strategy and had a falling out with one of its largest horticultural distributors, a company called Express Seed Company, and that, as I understand it, that relationship has not improved and continues to be difficult. So they've moved their supply relationships to other breeder producers, of which there are many. Duman.
And I saw they bought a distributor as well, and again, it just seems to be, I guess, I sort of characterize this industry as people sit in horizontal stratas in the industry. There are people who will, produce seeds. There are people then who might effectively then produce cuttings, but then you have another big layer, which is basically your growers. You then have some of the growers will be so large they'll go direct to, the large supermarkets, be it a Tesco or Walmart, et cetera, But then also you have a big distribution channel because obviously a lot of these things get sold through, relatively modest-sized garden centres. And so, if these guys are picking up distributors, it seems that, actually then you create the problem of, are you a supplier or a competitor? Exactly. And again, it just sort of speaks of, to the earlier point I made around expanding at all costs. And, again, it's very easy to make an acquisition look good on paper. The proof in the pudding is often only in 1-2 years when you properly integrated it. And then actually, you've either cannibalized your business or actually you developed another good sort of little profit center. But again, it just seems here that nothing's really been integrated. And it just speaks of, to your point, and we see it a lot, the whole, let's buy a bunch of stuff and then try and flip it. The only problem is if you then can't flip it, you tend to have a pretty awful hangover period. And, just seen it so many times. And it seems here that, I guess we're looking at it from a debt perspective, and as you can imagine, the debt has started to trade down. But I look at this business, I think my cut flower business is actually pretty good. The European business seems to be better than the US business, and that seems to be that your supply channels in Europe come out of Africa, and it seems that they've actually got some decent people down there. Whereas the US business, a lot of it comes from the Central Americas, and it seems to be that's where some of the more toxic assets seem to be within this business.
Yeah, because again, back to your description, they bought some challenged businesses that didn't have the right people. They lost the right people that were running those businesses, and that's particularly the case in their perennial business. They bought a farm that was an ongoing concern with good people. Those people have all since left, and they have a farm that's not efficient and no one driving the bus at the farm. And it's created a problem for them. So what I was getting to with the distribution business is there's really, even though it's fragmented, it's a very concentrated business in the United States.